What are going to be the best debuffs in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes? In this video, I'm going to break down the top 5 unique debuffs in the game and the top 5 generic debuffs in the game. Now, this is part of a 2-video series. I did the same thing for buffs. Go ahead and check that out. I'm putting a card above my head now. But in this video, we're going to talk about debuffs, which are, especially on the unique side of things, a lot more terrifying than the buffs. Man, we have got just a slew of crazy stuff that the developers have added into this game for debuffs. The ways that we torture people in this game is just mind-blowing to me. So without any further ado, let's jump into the top 5 unique debuffs in the game, followed by the top 5 regular debuffs in the game. Starting with number 5, we have got Shock. This is what Emperor Palpatine is going to be able to apply on his basic. And Shock, it's shocking. I mean, this thing sucks. Character cannot heal, gain buffs, or gain bonus turn meter. So it's going to act as a buff immunity, it's going to act as a healing immunity, and it's going to prevent you from gaining bonus turn meter. That can be really devastating in the game. This is like several buffs rolled into one. The only reason why this is going to be as low on the list as it is, coming in at number 5, is simply because this is cleansable. It's going to be very easy to dispel and have not much of an issue from there. But man, when you get shock applied to you by Palpatine, that can really stunt your progress in the battle. Not to mention that shock is going to interact with other shocks and apply additional damage every time Palpatine is using his basic. Coming in at number 4 is going to be Plague. Now, this would probably be higher back when Night Sisters were the meta. They've kind of fallen out of favor in the arena, but that said, when you get stuck behind a good, well-placed Plague, this might be pretty frustrating to say the least, because Plague is going to deal percentage damage underneath your protection. And the only way to cleanse Plague is going to be to heal yourself to 100% health, which isn't always easy to do, depending on the characters that you're using. Now, a big counter to this now currently is going to be those Traya teams. Are going to be able to heal very, very quickly. Maybe even Jedi teams, which can do a lot of healing. But that said, in its prime, this was very devastating to go against. Number 3 is going to be DEATHMARK. Now, the DEATHMARK, the biggest weakness of DEATHMARK, and probably why it's not higher, is because it's not gonna, I mean, Death Trooper doesn't have a super solid use in the arena meta. However, I'm going to give him some love here because of how useful DEATHMARK is in raids. DEATHMARK is going to, basically, it says that the character loses 50% of their max health when they're hit. Ouch! That is a lot of health, and it's going to be 0.03% for raid bosses. Now, that sounds small, but these raid bosses have so much health that 0.03% is going to really enable you to do a lot of damage. It's very vital to the Chex Mix team that lets you do millions and millions of damage in just a matter of a minute or two in Phase 3 of the Heroic Sith raid. Now, I'm just going to come right out here and say that the debate between number 1 and number 2 is between Fracture and Isolate, and this was not an easy decision to make. However, I'm going to rank Isolate at number 2 and Fracture at number 1. Isolate is going to be very nearly number 1. I'd say these are almost tied, but look at what Isolate does. You can't attack, gain buffs, or other positive status effects during another character's turn. So assist-heavy teams, forget about it. Allies can't attack or gain buffs during this character's turn. Raid bosses cannot gain buffs. Any allies who damage the boss gain crit damage up and health steal up for 1 turn can't be copied or dispelled. So it's locked as well. And not to mention that Isolate is going to stay there as long as Traya wants it to. Unless she dies, it will disappear, kind of like Fracture, or if she decides to apply it somewhere else. So in that respect, it's going to be more useful than Fracture. The main reason why I'm going to rank it just below Fracture by a hair is because Isolate is going to still enable characters to attack. And so some characters are still going to be able to be very useful, whereas Fracture is going to completely freeze them. But Isolate will also very severely neuter some characters like General Kenobi, for example, who once he has Isolate on him, he's not going to be able to do his cleanse, he's not going to be able to call assists. He is going to be very, very useless when he has Isolate on him. So Isolate, very, very powerful Darth Trey's unique debuff. And then, like I said, our number 1 is Fracture. Look, Fracture hits through everything. It cannot be evaded. It's a lock debuff. You set the speed to 0, cannot gain buffs, bonus attacks, or turn meter. Raid bosses lose 0% speed, counter chance, and cannot gain buffs. Fracture is the solution to so many things in the arena. And this is why Thrawn is so freaking useful in the arena. A lot of people for a long time have been struggling with Scion because his taunt is going to just keep persisting and persisting to whoever has pain. Now, one solution to that is to cleanse your team. Where that's not possible, just Fracture Scion. Don't worry about it. He's not going to be able to gain any buffs. He's going to sit there, not be able to do anything, and it's going to enable you to get around where you need to. How about Rey Jedi Training? She's got Foresight, persisting. Just Fracture. Then you can burn right through her. There's so many characters that it is so useful to use Fracture on to either avoid taunts or to just freeze a character there so you can just go for him. It is the best debuff in this game, in my opinion. All right, now looking at the top 5 debuffs in the game, the general debuffs, not the unique debuffs. Coming in at number 5, we have Stagger. Stagger is actually really dang useful. There's just not that many characters that can apply it, which is probably why I've got it down here on the list. But Zeb, for example, when he's going to use Staggering Sweep, it's going to be very, very useful for you in Phoenix Squad, when say in Territory Wars, that kind of thing. But what Stagger does, character loses 100% turn meter when they're hit. Ouch. That is really, really useful. So target characters that have Stagger applied to them, very, very nice to have that in there, because turn meter manipulation in the arena in particular, just in a turn meter based game, is very, very king. Coming in at number 4 is going to be Buff Immunity. Now, Buff Immunity is going to be super useful against characters like, say, Darth Scion, who is going to have a persisting taunt he's gaining all the time. If you can land a Buff Immunity on him, you don't need to worry about that. So if you're going against him and you don't have Thrawn, for example, but you got maybe Commander Luke Skywalker in your team, use Commander Luke Skywalker's special ability, hopefully land Buff Immunity, and then you will be in the clear. Buff Immunity is what in the past made B2 Super Battle Droid super useful, because he would do that AoE, he would apply Buff Immunity, and it just really kind of neutered you and made it really hard to get much progress in the game. So Buff Immunity coming in at number 4, it completely stops you from gaining any buffs, and a lot of characters can apply it. Number 3 on the list is Ability Block. Ability Block sucks. And there's a lot of characters that can apply Ability Block. Some even on AoE basis, like Old Ben, for example. Ability Block, it just, I mean, when you're able to use Ability Block right, or when you get Ability Blocked at just the wrong time, it stops you from using those abilities that you have to use to get an advantage in the battle. Say, for example, Grand Admiral Thrawn, he's got to Fracture. Old Ben's on the other side. He's Ability Blocked. He's not able to get that Fracture off early in the battle. You're not able to control the pace of the battle nearly as effectively because of that Ability Block. I think General Kenobi is another example. I've seen many times where my General Kenobi gets Ability Blocked, and as a result, I'm unable to get any progress going in the game because I can't call the Mass Assist, I can't cleanse, that kind of thing. Lots of things can go wrong when you get Ability Blocked, because you need to use those special abilities early in the battle so you can get the tide moving in your direction. So Ability Block, a fantastic way to control the pace of the battle on your side, and a really annoying way to have it disrupted if it is used against you. Our number 2 debuff is going to be Expose. Now, Expose might have been number 1 at one point when it was as useful as it used to be in raids. It did get nerfed a bit in raids, but it's still just as useful in arena. Expose says a character loses 20% or 0.02% for raid bosses of their max health when they're hit. This is kind of like a mini DEATHMARK in many ways. 20% is a hefty amount of damage, and so you're going to have a lot of exposed heavy teams like a Resistance that are going to be able to do insane copious amounts of damage on you when they utilize expose properly. Now, a big reason why, again, it's not going to be #1 on our list this month is because it did get nerfed a bit in raids, and a lot of those characters that are going to be really using expose to their advantage aren't as meta as they used to be. However, Raid Jedi training and those resistance teams, the BB-8 and that kind of thing, they still do have a place in the arena, very much so. And so expose is going to be very valuable to them, and when it is used against you properly, ouch, it just totally sucks. And then finally, the best debuff in Galaxy of Heroes, the best general debuff that is, in my opinion, is DAZE. Now look, the biggest reason why DAZE is going to be #1 on this list is because it stops you from gaining any turn meter. Character cannot counter, assist, or gain extra turn meter. And so, in a turn meter based game, not having the ability to gain extra turn meter is going to really halt the flow of battle, especially against teams like Rex teams that are going to rely heavily on that bonus turn meter, or especially Palpatine teams where you really want to get that turn meter train going. If you can use Wampa, for example, Wampa's a character that can apply AoE daze on his special ability, you are going to be able to stop that turn meter train early in the battle. He's going to hit the ground, the daze goes up, that turn meter train would be rolling, but because you got daze on maybe 3 out of 5 characters, those characters are not gaining that bonus turn meter, and so you're able to control the pace of that battle much more effectively. #1 debuff in the game is DAZE. All right, my friends, I hope this video was helpful for you to gain a little bit better understanding of debuffs in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. Let me know what your thoughts are on the list down below, and go ahead and check out gaming-fans.com. They have a comprehensive database of all of the debuffs and buffs in this game that is very nice to take a look at if you're just wanting to have it all in one place, just so you can have a good solid grip and understanding of what each debuff and buff does in Galaxy of Heroes. If you did like the videos, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, go ahead and do so. And as always, my brothers, don't forget.
For my dead body. Sorry about the mess.